I really believe that our bodies know how to heal themselves. They absolutely know. What they need is for us to know that as well, and to drop into them and tune into them and dialogue with them and work with them and nurture them and love them. And this course addresses all of that. My name is Janet Raptis. I am an energy healer and psychic medium. In addition to healing work, I teach others how to use their intuition. And I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
How did you know that you wanted to study more about the nervous system?
I didn't.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But
Okay.
what was happening was I wasn't even thinking about myself, really. I had stuff going on with myself that I knew was deeper. I have done a lot of healing work in a myriad of modalities. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of emotional release work as well, and yet there was still something that was going on, but I didn't know what it was. I felt things that were trapped in my body, but they were eluding my normal practices.
Got it.
And in my clients, one of the things that I can do is I can psychically see the problems, the root cause of what's going on in my clients' bodies. And I over a period of time kept getting information about the nervous system. I could feel when it was on go and the gas at the same time. I could tell when they were on flight. I was already starting to energetically work with kidneys and adrenals and receiving some messages from my team about how to help others with that. And then, it was so divinely lined up that I connected with you, because I'm just on Facebook one day and I saw your anger article.
Oh, great.
And I was like, oh, look, here's somebody talking about anger. I just want to read this and see what she says. And that led me to your 3-part trauma series. And I started listening to it and I was like, oh, yes.
Got it.
And I knew, I have to know more about this.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just got shivers as you said that. That's like divine timing in its best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I signed up almost immediately. I knew that I needed it. I started doing healing work when I was in my early 30s, around the time my son was born. So I've always been very intuitive, and I've always been fascinated with healing and energy. I used to play with energy when I was a child. But when I got pregnant, I really cleaned up my life, and then I found out that I was very depressed. And I found out that I still hadn't healed from a rape that happened in high school, and I found out that I needed to start dealing with it. So I picked up Reiki. That was my first modality, and I picked it up as a way to self-heal. And that very quickly grew into working with others. And energy healing did a lot. It did a lot for healing my trauma. Yep. It helped in many ways. But, I kept going there's more. And even though I had gotten to a place where I can talk about it, I feel like I've gotten to true forgiveness, I've released all the emotions, I still felt it in my body so strongly. I couldn't even describe it. I ended up finding the words for it in your program, but I couldn't describe it, and I knew what it was, and I didn't know how to shift it.
Got it. What were the words that you ended up finding or discovering while doing the 12-week course? So
what I found that really spoke to me was, and I don't even remember where I came across it in the program, but about frozen shoulder.
Yes.
And then I was doing the diaphragm exercise, which was so powerful for me. I was crying. I was pissed. I was like, I didn't want to do it. I could feel all the resistance in the world. It's like the most gentle, loving thing. And I was like, no. Yeah. And what came up when I was working with my right shoulder was get the F off of me.
Yeah.
Very primal, get the F off of me.
Oh, more shivers.
Yeah. It's really powerful. And I think a big shift occurred right there, which has continued to unfold. But in that moment, it was like, I felt like this huge wave of relief.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I like that you got into the healing work. You knew there was a trauma that you had to heal. You went into the energy side of things, which was, I think, a way to prime you to be ready for this work, which is so often the case. And then just this, like you said, this subtle neurosensory exercise brought in all these emotions and body sensations and primal
Mm-hmm.
instinct.
Yeah.
Had
Yeah.
you ever felt that kind of primal instinct before in reference to healing?
Not to that extent, because I feel like even when I have done some pretty heavy anger work, and I think I've gotten pretty close, but this was from a depth I really didn't know. Like, it really felt like this was embedded in me, if that makes sense. And so it was a very different type of, I can't even describe it. It was a very different type of sensation.
Yeah.
Like, it came from I have yelled from my gut, but this wasn't even the yelling, but it was like I don't know. It was definitely from my nervous system. It was like, what would have happened had I not frozen in the time I was raped?
Exactly. And I'm glad that you did freeze when that happened.
Yeah.
Because it preserved your safety.
Yeah. So this was the fact that I froze during it. I was very confused about that, right? I had done, like I said, so much work around it, but I still carried this seed of not guilt so much, but like doubt in myself around it.
Yeah.
And Seth answered one of my questions in the forum one day, and he said, your body did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
God, like, what a relief. I just got taken off the hook.
Yes.
And I had been mad at my body.
Yes.
Because it felt like my body had betrayed me. That was kind of the core issue there, was like, I shouldn't have, I gave up at one point and I just gave in. And that was it. I gave in. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't realize I was going into freeze. I didn't realize that that's what I had to do in that moment to stay safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did. And you're alive now because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about your shoulder. You mentioned in a written testimonial that you also gave us, thank you, by the way, that something really shifted in your wrist.
Yeah.
And that was like, and I don't remember reading about that in the forum. Maybe you didn't share, which is totally fine. But I'd love to hear that physical part and how it connected with these fight, flight, freeze pieces.
Yeah, so my shoulder and my hand, and I believe that it's all connected. I've had carpal tunnel for many, many years, and I kind of chalked it up to, I knew there was anger in there, and I had done some anger work with it, which was helpful. But I grew up as a gymnast. I'd hurt my wrist many, many times. Then I bartended. I mean, I had done a lot.
Lots.
Yeah. But I also recognized that there was something more in there. There was a reason that was a weak spot. And so, and I had been exploring it. And by the time I started the course, I was actually really starting to get worried about my hand and my wrist, because I was starting to experience, as it was typically, it's discomfort and stiffness and moments of pain, but it's not like a painful experience, but it's hard to move it, and fine motor skills are getting hard.
Got it.
Or were getting hard. They were getting harder, and I was starting to notice more pain around my thumb and all the way down into here. So it was actually starting to get worried. Writing was becoming very difficult for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't write for an extended period without it getting really sloppy, because I just didn't have the control. So as another one of the exercises that I loved was the joint exercise. I mean, I do it almost all the time. Like, even when I'm just talking, I'm just like caressing my hand and my joints. It's like, it feels like a hug to me, that exercise. And I was doing it a lot because I loved it so much. And I wasn't really paying attention to what it was doing or not doing to me. I was just doing it because I loved it. And what I started to notice, and I guess I noticed that there was less pain. That was the first thing I noticed. Whatever had really set in here went away. And then I was at a 3-day conference with my business coach, taking copious notes. And at the end of the first day, I went, oh my God, I just wrote all day long. My printing is neat, legible, and my hand doesn't hurt at all.
Wow.
And that was like a huge moment for me. And it keeps getting better. The bell hand exercise has been really wonderful with that. So, I mean, I feel like it's still unraveling. And what's happened is between that and my shoulder, I was always uncomfortable in my body. I was like,
trying to get,
yes, clothes are uncomfortable on me. And like, the whole thing, I'm always trying to move. And it's still there a little bit, but it has released significantly. Like even I felt some stress come in. I was with my partner the other day and I went, like that. And he said, "Oh my God, how's your neck?" And I said, "It's a little tense." And he said, "The only reason I noticed is because you hardly ever do it anymore."
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a good attentive partner there.
I know he is. Yeah. So it's the whole area. I feel like if I had been wound up like a corkscrew really tightly in different points on my body, but connected, and they're all just sort of like
unraveling
and more space is being created, which you talk about a lot.
That's the main key, creating that capacity. And it's so I can verbalize it to people, in the teachings, in the training videos, the analogy of the swimming pool and the beach balls, and it's kind of, how is it different for you to really dive into the practice of feeling what it's like to gain more capacity as opposed to just the theoretical, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was both joyful and terrifying.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So the part that was, there were many moments that I felt panic in the exercises.
Yep.
And simultaneously, I knew that the panic, releasing the panic, and that expression that wanted to come through was what would create space.
Got it.
And I had done a lot of space creating work, energetically bringing space into my body, but until my physical body actually moved, the space on the physical level couldn't be created. So even in the first orientation exercise that we did, I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of sheer panic I felt when I started moving my head to the left.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was hanging in there and I was crying and I was amazed at the same time, like, whoa, who would have thought?
Isn't it weird? I still think it's weird to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really weird. And so, so it's been, the practical part of it has been a very broad range of emotions, but always, you're right. Like on theory, I got it, but until I started practicing it, I didn't get it.
Got it.
When it landed in my body, I was like, yes, this is it.
How were the exercises in the program different than, like, say, not better than, but different than, say, yoga or gentle stretching? Because we talk about practices that get us into our body. And I went for a walk this morning. I'll exercise at the gym. How is that different for you? How are these exercises in the program different than, say, going for a nice walk or having a nice long stretch?
Yeah. So, well, they're not, it's so interesting. They're not physical, and yet they're completely physical.
Yeah.
It's
how confusing is that?
I know. What's so interesting too, and I'm glad you brought this up because I noticed another thing. So I used to do yoga a lot, and I had to stop doing yoga because even with modifications, it was starting to really hurt my body. Because what was happening was my body was holding stuff in it, and so I couldn't do the postures correctly, and so I would feel good in the moment, and then afterwards I would feel worse. And with walking, my lower back was starting to hurt so bad that I'd even cut down my walking.
Oh.
That is back up again, and my lower back is not hurting. Yes, so that's been an amazing thing. But I think the biggest difference is the subtlety of the exercises that you share. I mean, they are so subtle and gentle, and yet the impact is, to me, what I discovered for me was that the impact was more profound.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until this program that I go into freeze response more than I thought I did. And when I particularly go into it when there's any sort of uncomfortable discussion or highly charged emotion.
Got it.
And I thought that I was just unable to express myself. Like, I work a lot on self-expression. I can write really beautifully, but when it comes to verbal speaking, it challenges me. And I thought that it was some sort of deficiency on my part. And what I discovered in the program through the awareness exercises is that it was actually that I go into freeze response. And I had a very clear moment where my partner and I were having a very, I would say, heavy discussion, not argument, but heavy discussion. And he was challenging me. And I absolutely noticed exactly when I went into freeze.
Oh.
And I had the awareness of, I am in freeze right now. And I was able to communicate to him, I'm in freeze right now. And I cannot articulate what I need to say to you right now. And so I'm going to take a few moments to come back around, and then we can readdress this when I feel comfortable. I always wondered what was wrong with me. I mean,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Would you have considered yourself in the past more introverted because of that trait?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm curious now, what's your thought on that labeling of introversion, extroversion, now that your nervous system is more regulated than it was, say, 6 months ago?
Yeah, that people who are struggling with nervous system dysfunction are more likely to be introverts because it's harder to deal with all the sensory stuff that is all around you all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I mean, I have done a lot to shift my energy around stress, and I used to get triggered a lot. Since I've done the emotional work, I don't, because emotional work, as you know, is incredibly powerful and helpful with that. But I still got stuck in freeze and still didn't understand it. And that could happen from a discussion, but it could also happen from other people having a discussion around me or anger around me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of noise can cause me to, come back. And I really now believe that is because my nervous system is very touchy.
Got it.
Now.
And that's an important point that I wanted to just ask, because you do more intuitive energy work. Clearly you have to be sensitive to energy. Have you found, I'm going to assume this is a no, but have you found that things have shut down in your intuition now that you're not as, let's say, triggered by sounds and people, or are you like, what's the difference? Because you're still doing your work, but now from a different lens.
Yes. So I would say I'm more intuitive because I'm quieter inside of me. Yeah, absolutely. It's not, I don't have to cut through as much to get to it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's almost like your job is a little more efficient.
My job is more efficient. That's a great way of putting it.
Would that be one way of saying it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And I definitely have noticed that when I'm out and about, and I have worked a lot with being an empath, and that's something that I help others with. There are a lot of tools that we can use as empaths. And so I have built up a really strong energy field. But what the nervous system regulation has done is that I'm not as startled. I don't know how else to put this, but I'm not as likely to cringe.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah. And I'm more resilient now.
Any other sort of side effects, good side effects that you've noticed? We've talked about the physical, we've talked about the emotions, even better relationship with your man, it sounds like, more intuitive in your business. Anything else that's sort of top of mind that you've noticed?
Yeah, so I'm sleeping much better. And when I do wake up in the night, it's easier to fall back asleep. I don't wake up with worries on my mind, and I'm able to calm back down. Like I don't even get elevated, so I don't have to calm back down. I wake up, I'm like, I'm awake, and I go back to sleep.
Sweet.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Sweet.
And the other thing is that my immune system feels stronger.
Just a sense that you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just and I feel stronger in that way. And nothing has really, I feel more, I don't know, I just feel stronger in that way.
Sweet.
It's hard to put a word on it.
I know. I believe you, though. I believe you. Like, what would you want to say to someone that is still not 100% sure that they want to dive into the nervous system learning?
Yeah. So with respect to somebody who is working with energy, I would say that specifically if they're working with it in the same capacity as I am, that it's extremely helpful. The information that I got from the course on a purely practical, theoretical level in and of itself was huge, and it has benefited my clients. And I've been able to share more with them and help them more positively. With me, I would say that energy is amazing, and energy work, without a doubt, can create miracles. I've seen them happen.
Yeah.
But most of the time, most of us have a different process to go through, and the process is a part of the journey. And so what I've noticed is that while it would be possible to release all this instantaneously if we were truly aligned with that, we all could.
Yep.
Most of us are in this as an experience, and our bodies are holding on to things, and we are in resistance to seeing it a lot of the time. And a lot of what this course did in a very subtle and beautiful way was peeled back a lot of those layers for me. I really feel like I love smart body, smart mind, because I really believe that our bodies know how to heal themselves. They absolutely know. What they need is for us to know that as well, and to drop into them and tune into them and dialogue with them and work with them and nurture them and love them. And this course addresses all of that. If I hadn't come across this course, the first thing that comes to mind for me a year from now is that I would be really struggling with the nerves in my wrists, the carpal tunnel.
Right.
I do really feel like I was on my way to losing control of my hand. I feel like I would still be living in a really, really uncomfortable feeling to me body, which, I'm so happy to.
Yeah.
Yet again. Yeah. And, really, Irene, I kind of put the question up of like, who knows where it would have gone?
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of what we're seeing as far as illness and autoimmune and a lot of other things is very relatable to the nervous system.
Yeah. If you were to just sort of sense into your gut right now and your cells, and whatever energy is around you, what has been the biggest takeaway benefit for you as someone who is a healer and wants to help others?
So, when I tune into my body and my cells, they're like, thank you. I have such it's like I've loved my body, but I was at odds with it because I felt like it was at odds with me.
Yeah.
So I was trying to love something while at the same time feeling disconnected from it. And even though I was doing exercises and embodiment work and this and that, it didn't go as deep as what we did in the class. Like, I was scratching the surface. And as soon as I went in and started doing some of these exercises, what happened was that I developed a relationship of profound trust with my body.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to start crying.
Tears are okay. That's massive.
Yeah.
To trust, like deep trust, not cognitive trust.
Yes, exactly. Deep in my gut trust. Like, my body's like, we got this. We got this, Janet.
Yay! Well, thank you
Yeah, thank you.
You are
Thank
so
you.
welcome.